Meeting of the Monee Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. It is 6:34. If the everybody would stand, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance first.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we do anything, I would like to recognize that we have a new member on the planning board, Mr. Mike Johnson. Mike was approved by the village board a couple of weeks ago at their meeting. Mike is a resident of Monee, lives over by St. Paul's. Mike, put you on the spot. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
I can do that.
And I want to ask everybody tonight, because we're being televised, to please speak into the mic so everybody can hear you. Dorothy, if you can't hear us, raise your hand. Perfect.
Dorothy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mike Johnson. I moved down here to Monee about 1.5 years ago. And my background is I'm an electrical contractor and a building and electrical inspector for 3 communities. I have been a tradesman for over 35 years, and I just gave away my age. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to, or at least I hope I can help with any problems or any occurrences that come up with planning and zoning. Thank you.
We welcome you aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. With that, now I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Bartlett. Gross.
Here.
Alston.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Wheeland.
Here.
Thank you. Next order of business would be the approval of minutes for the March 20th, 2013 meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from March 20th, 2013 as presented.
Okay.
I second it.
Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Gross.
Yes.
Alston.
Yes?
Johnson.
Yes.
Wheeland.
Yes.
Thank you. At this point, we are at the normal public hearing spot. I'm going to stop for a second and explain how this process is working tonight. First of all, in the past, when the Planning and Zoning Committee met, it was to vote on exceptions. Somebody had a special use permit they were asking for, and we were there to say yes or no, and that was a specific subject. One of the things that the new village board and mayor have asked us to do this year is to go and look at some of the ordinances in town and try to make suggestions and recommendations back to the council about how we can update and or modernize some of those ordinances. The village board asked us to start with 2 ordinances. One is the sign ordinance, and the other one is the tree ordinance. So this is not a meeting tonight where we will vote on anything. We're not going to make any decisions tonight. All we're doing tonight is soliciting public comment. We will have an additional meeting next month at our regular scheduled time where we will continue to do that. And if at that time we think an action is necessary to recommend to the village council, we will do that. Now, at this point, the process works. We would be recommending to the village council for their action. We're not empowered to make any changes, just so the public understands that. This is not an area to talk about enforcement because we're not charged with enforcing. We're just charged with code, making sure that the codes are being followed. The village has people who do that. On the other hand, if you have a question or a comment about a specific part of the code, and I understand because I spent a couple minutes talking with everybody here, that everybody here is primarily interested tonight in the sign. There's at least one person I know is interested in the tree ordinance as well. So we'll solicit comments from anybody about either one of those that you'd like to have. We passed out a few minutes ago the sign ordinance. Now, I want to point out, there are more statutes than this that are part of other ordinances, but this is the sign ordinance. I also want to point out that if you go to the village webpage, and you go to the resource center on the village webpage, and then you go all the way to the right on the bottom of that webpage, there's a button that says codes. And if you click that button, it will call up the Sterling Codifiers, which will show all the current codes. Now, the exception to that would be if the village board might have passed something last month, it might have not got on there yet. But to my knowledge, they haven't passed anything in several months in that area. So all the current codes for the village of Monee will be on that page. So once again, I'll say that. It'll be on the village webpage. Go to the Resources Center portion, click on that. Go to the far right, there's a button on the bottom, it's a brown button, it says Codes. Click on that, and it will take you to Sterling Codifiers, Inc. webpage, and all of the ordinances related to the village of Monee will be in there by section. It's pretty easy to follow, it's a nice thing to use, makes it a lot easier than printing out a bunch of paper and killing a lot of trees. So I would encourage the public, as well as the members of the zoning committee, to use that as a resource as you have questions and as you go further. Now, for the members of the committee tonight, you have a copy of the zoning for signs and the zoning for the sidewalks. We didn't necessarily expect you to go through these ahead of time, but you're more than welcome to, as we get into the business of the night, talk about any specific ones. If the public, when you come up, if you have a specific code you'd like to talk about, please tell us that so we can save some time. If you don't, that's okay. We'll take notes and we'll do our best to do some research between now and the next meeting. And at that point, you can ask us questions then. I would also point out to the public that as chairman of the Planning and Zoning Committee, I have a email address, and you can email me at the Village of Monee, dholston@thevillageofmonee, if you have questions. Those questions, we won't be able to do anything other than gather that and take that to the next meeting in order not to be Mr. Attorney in trouble with the Freedom of Meeting Act. So, but again, we want to be accessible as much as possible to reviewing codes when requested. We want to be accessible to giving the village council board our recommendations based upon our research. To the members of the committee, we'll encourage you to go and use your other resources, maybe other villages where you work or villages where you have contact. I know Phyllis Nealon, for the record, wrote most of these codes. So she knows them in and out, and she knows the reasoning behind. On the other hand, there have been laws in the last few years that have changed, and those laws mean that sometimes the codes need to change as well. Today's 2013, and sometimes things do have to be changed. So we recognize all that, and this is just the first step. We want to be able to be open completely to the public. We want and solicit your comments. We'll do that tonight, and then we'll come back in a month and we'll do it again. So feel free to say anything you'd like to tonight, respectfully, of course. Please let us know who you are when you step up to the mic. We are asking you to try to keep it around 3 minutes, but we're not going to watch the clocks in that regard. If we would get into ramble, then we might, but I don't think we will. I know everybody that's here. I want to point out that I wore my work shirt tonight. I didn't change clothes because I came right from work. I work in Monee too. The sign ordinance is very dear to my heart as well. The tree ordinance is very dear to my heart. I have big trees right on Main Street and Linden Avenue. I'm very concerned about that. The people that are on this board are the same. We all live in Monee. Most of us, not most of us, some of us work in Monee. And we certainly all want to do everything we can to be able to modernize our sign ordinances, make them as fair as possible and as applicable as possible as well. So that being said, I will be quiet and open up the public forum. If you have something to say about something, please step up, tell us your name, where you live, and let us know what you'd like to tell us.
My name is Lee Boswell, 5157 Park Lane, Monee, Illinois. I own Mulligan's Pub in town, and I am also here on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce too. There's people here, they couldn't come here tonight, and they want me to bring some feedback from the the meeting on different things, and they have their issues too. So what I'll start out to is a chamber member, the people that couldn't come here. There's been incidents in the past about advertising signage and that stuff. About, for instance, Dan Mosca, he has a car that's been a problem, they said, with the village and that, and I just got the ordinance tonight to look at it, and I was just wondering, all of a sudden it just seemed like they'd come up a sign ordinance on that. I really haven't even looked through the ordinance for the signs yet. And another one was an old problem, he couldn't be here tonight, he had an emergency, that is Jim from the auto parts store. And
McCollum?
Jim,
Jim McCollum?
yeah, no, Jim, the auto parts, I don't know what his last name is.
Lincoln Auto.
Lincoln Auto, right, because in the past, he's always, when I first came to my bar 15 years ago, they were always being able to park there, and it just seemed recently that within a year or two, they said they couldn't park their stuff up because of some violations. And I'm just up here, you know, asking what's gonna be done about it, or what's, they told them that they had to be in the back, and we're just trying to strive in this town for business, we're hurting for business, and the only, I don't see how he can advertise in the back when everything's out front. People drive by like my bar or any other bar in town, and they got signs out there, and they see it, and they'll pull in or something. But Jim said he's lost some business because they're in the back and there's no other signs out there, and I was just wondering if there's some way when we sit down together and work on this thing that we can have like advertising out in front of our businesses and have like that, and even Dan Mosca with his car and that laying out there, being put out there. To me, it's not, everything is clean out there. It's not, they're not run down and torn apart or anything. He's just sitting out in the front there, you know, just, it's like an advertising. But due to the laws, and I know the laws here, the ordinance, they're old and they're outdated, and that's why we want to bring it up to the board and that, to see if we can sit down together and work something out so we can revive everything, get everybody on the same page. Some people have come tonight with different problems, they can speak for themselves, but I'm just talking about that and the signage and that stuff. We've got to get down so we can get some, all the signs that I've seen out there from the people, like my signs are leather, and they've been up there 2 years, and nobody said nothing 2 years till a week ago Friday. And if they have a problem, we took everything down. But I looked at the ordinance for the flags I have out front, and I went by the ordinance, and I'm legal with the ordinance, with the deck out there, as long as there's people out there and I'm selling alcohol out there, I can do it. But I was told, take down the signs and get a permit. And then, so that's why I came in here in view of the chamber and myself to see if we can get down and see what's right and what's wrong, because we want to abide by the law, especially me, want to abide by the law on that. And so, any questions, or I just want, because as we speak, signs are down, especially for me. We just got gambling in this town. Gambling, I know some people don't like it, but it benefits the town, village town. You get a tax, and there's revenue, and the village doesn't have to do anything. All they got to do is see what's in their bank account, and it's well over 1,000. We've only been up February, March, April, maybe 3 or 4 months, and it's starting to pick up here because we're getting the people that were in Monee. They left town. They're playing it everywhere else. Now they're starting to spend their money in town. And you can see it. It's open knowledge. If you go to Illinois Gaming Board, you can see the 3 bars are on there, how much we're making and how much the village is getting, and that's good for the village. And there's some people that doesn't want the gambling in that, but in order to survive, we got to keep up with the times with everybody else around here has machines besides Monee. We waited too long, and we put them at the bottom of the list. We should have them in November. We need to start getting to February and that, and that's why we lost out on that. Now we got to win our own village people back in town, win them back here. We got to advertise, but people, if we don't have the signs, they're decent signs, they're leather signs, and Excel was all excited because they came by, and even Illinois Lotto last week said, "Where's our signs?" I said, well, we had to take them down, freestanding, we were gonna get it all worked out at the planning and zoning and the board meetings. And they wanna get back to them today, because they were in there today too, the Illinois Gaming Board was in there, he said, where's the signs? I said, we can only put it on our board. So that's why I wanna get back with them too and see what we can work out to get those signs back up, so people drive by, say, oh, Illinois Gaming, we can pull in there. They're coming to spend their money at our bar, or, you know, the bars, and then every time, you get a nickel for every dollar. So why wouldn't you, you know, even think about it, you know, work on it and see what you guys can do with it, okay?
Okay.
That's all I'm asking, just take a look at it, and I'm gonna look at the board, at this, thing, the ordinance, I looked at it, but it's kind of, for me, I read it 3 or 4 times, like the freestanding, but they said freestanding can be bolted to the wall, on the walls. But then again, it's not freestanding, you gotta have a permit, because it's not it's fastened to the wall, to the major wall. What I need is clarity. I need, you know, I just need clarity, so we can go through that and see what the clarity is. It's vague out there, what you can do, what you can't do, and since they're gonna start enforcing everything, I think that's the way we should get together and go through it and see what's right, and if we update, we have to update, because things are being changed every day, and like you said, Dave, everything's being changed every day with the state land. So I just wanna keep up with the times and keep everybody honest in town and that.
Okay.
So, well, thank you.
Let me, before you leave, let me ask you, I want to clarify what the items that I wrote down, you asked about. You wrote down about specifically somebody's car that has advertising on it.
Right,
The link.
that's been brought up in the past,
Pardon?
but he couldn't be here
Yeah,
tonight, so
no, that's
they
fine,
have
I'm just wanting to make sure we have everything on. the-
advertising of a car out on.
Parking cars, advertising in front of business, signs for flags on the deck with the serves alcohol, that's specifically your deck.
Right,
Lottery signs for the
They're-
business that you have.
right, that's all state stuff, right.
Okay, very good. Did I miss anything?
No, just the advertising, the U-Hauls, that's it, from Jim, that's all,
You.
to see what can be done.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ed, did you have?
Just one, where were the signs for the state? Where did you have those displayed at?
The state of Illinois, I have them in the front of my building. They're leather, they cost a lot of money, I talked to them, over 500, and they're permanent signs. But the way their ordinance reads, they're freestanding signs, but they've been up there since April, but the lottery signs have been on my deck, the advertising deck, they've been out there 2.5 years. And they're not shriveled or anything, and they're still brand new. I was gonna bring one and show you, it's been up for 2 years, it still looks nice. They're willing to give us other copies when they wore down, but they don't wear down because they spend a lot of money. Now on the flags that I have out there, I take them flags down, I take the flags down, if one rips, I tear a hole, and the beer vendors will give you new ones to participate out there, because they wanna advertise their product out there.
Now, when did this transpire, that they came and took your signs down?
Well, they came 2 Fridays ago, and they said, they gave us a orange sticker, and it said, I forget what it said on there, but it was a sticker that we had to remove the signs.
And who had signed that orange sticker? Whose signature was on it?
Right here.
That would have been.
No, that would've been-
It was Carol.
No.
It was Carol.
Oh, was it? I know she delivered it, she said,
That's
you
okay.
gotta apply it, so that's what I did. I went up there, and I went out there a day later, when it was nice out, I pulled
So Carol
everything.
delivered the
Yeah, she was to send there to show the orange ticket, and she gave me a thing, and I read that little slip they gave us
Yeah.
of the freestanding signs.
Okay.
But it's, if I had to take everything down, it says right on there for freestanding signs like a decks or that stuff, as long as I'm serving beer out there, they're paying for beer on the deck, it's legal. But I didn't wanna get into a problem with anything, so I just took everything down. And then that's why I got involved with
And
Jim.
I'm assuming, Lee, on that, for example, we're over 3 minutes, but again, this is a hearing, so you folks be patient, everybody get their time. Section 2, freestanding signs, it says, one freestanding sign shall be permitted by right for each business site. Additional freestanding signage may be permitted by application to the planning commission as detailed elsewhere in this chapter. So the question I would have, according to the ordinance, have you ever applied for additional signage?
No, I never had in the past. Nobody came up to me and told me. You
Okay,
know, I didn't know the law.
Okay.
But the freestanding, if you read onto that, it says, you get one sign, you get to do it, you get it 2 times for 10-day period, twice a year.
Mhm.
Because a lot of them would be freestanding. It's not bolted to the thing, but it's attached.
But again, you get one according to the ordinance. Now, again, that's why we want to talk about the ordinance, but the
Right.
ordinance, well, first of all, I want to make it clear that the person who issued you the citation is just doing her job.
Right, oh, I have no problem, that's why
The
we're here.
ordinance specifically says, one freestanding sign shall be permitted by right per each business site. Additional freestanding signage may be permitted by application. So if you didn't apply, then her charges, she has to, and she has to apply.
Oh,
that.
sure, I have no,
And obviously, you said yourself, those have been out there, some of those signs have been out there for a long period, longer than 10 days.
two and a half years.
Yeah.
One was 2.5 years, the other one since February.
Okay.
And then, okay, well,
That's
thank
sort of
you.
an issue, I mean, that's an issue we
Right.
want to address, and that's why I'm asking, I want to clarify that.
But the
I read
signs
that
we
one,
got
I
are
read that
freestanding.
couple
I just want to look freestanding, what's a temporary sign freestanding? Because it's vague, and if you read it, it's kind of vague.
Well, let me ask you, how were the signs installed? How were they held up?
How were they were by 3/4 inch staples, it never flapped or nothing, it was solid, it was just like a metal sign up there. People gone by there, and during the bad storms we've been having and everything, nothing, it never came up because we put enough staples in it. I put over 100 staples in the lotteries.
Do you know what size those signs are?
Well, I was gonna bring one, but I figured we're just this dark
Right.
age, and I was
I
gonna
mean,
bring
just
one.
approximate.
I was gonna bring one and show you, it's been up for 2.5 years, you tell me it looks like it's brand new. Because they're made well and they're put on the side of the deck real well. So, I'm gonna step down so that I know a lot of other people.
Yeah, and thank you very much for the information, because this again helps us to know what parts of the ordinance we need to look at
Right.
and try to get definition of. And please come back next month, we'll talk about it some more. Fair enough? Thanks, Lee. I want to point out that I'm also a member of the chamber.
Hello, my name's Nancy Mostert, 5640 West Laurel Lane, and I just wanted to add to what he said too. I know that Dan Mosca has a vehicle that says State Farm on it, and he has been ticketed for that because he parks it in the front parking lot. And I just think that's a hardship, that he has to park his vehicle that has his...
I didn't hear all of that.
He has been ticketed for that in the past, because he has a vehicle that has that says State Farm on it. So he has been required to park that vehicle behind the State Farm building. So it seems unreasonable to me that he should have to do that. And as far as Lincoln Auto Parts, the only reason that I know that they rent U-Hauls is because the U-Hauls used to be in the front, and the trucks say U-Haul. So I think that's a good thing for Lincoln Auto Parts, and for people to know that you can get a U-Haul truck there. I don't see him in the back at all. So I think that's a hardship for him to make money selling his U-Haul trucks if people can't see them. And I don't think it's unsightly to have them in the front. But I agree that those two issues should be talked about, and they're kind of they go along with an off-site signage issue, which is in here. There is no off-site signage, and I think that the thing that I want to bring up is, I know that the village is going to be attempting to put some signage on the water tower, and that is an off-site signage situation. Perhaps the village will make money if they rent out the water tower to businesses. Let's say, for example, if Mitsubishi wants to rent out the water tower to put Mitsubishi up there and pays something to the village, then in effect, the village is not complying with its off-site signage rule, and they may be making money doing it. My husband and I happen to be in the sign business, and we make money with off-site signage. So sometimes municipalities make decisions that the private sector may not make money doing this. but we can because we're the village and we're gonna use our property to make money. So it becomes sort of, there's a disparity there, I had said it in the village board meeting, if the village decides they wanna make some money for the village, you know, they need to make money, and they decide they wanna have a chicken joint, and all the money from the chicken joint is gonna go into the village coffers, then they also need to allow somebody else to make money. The private sector, we need to make money too, to fix our windows and fix up our property. So the issue of the water tower should be thought of carefully, because if they're gonna adjust, if they're gonna do that, they're gonna have to adjust the sign ordinance to be able to not be in violation themselves.
Sure.
And then and so you're gonna have to make some kind of a decision, well, if the village can do it, can the private sector do it? The people who care about making money with signs like we do, we'd like to be able to do it too. Which brings up one more thing, and that is there are several places in town that really could use some off-site signage. For example, if you're going down Industrial Drive, there are a lot of businesses back there. It could, there used to be a lot of illegal signs right on the corner of Route 50 and Industrial Drive to try to advertise what was back there. Store More Storage was one, Kathy Dickinson Design, The Vet. So people know what's back there. I think that there should be some kind of a provision for off-site signage in that location. There's another location over by Monee Manhattan Road in Ridgeland, where you have all those warehouses. Nobody knows what's back there because they're not allowed to put one, Mark, what are those signs called where they put a bunch
Pylon
of...
sign or a tenant sign?
A tenant sign where they, like where Shoop's is,
I don't know.
they're all listed. They've got
Yeah,
a freestanding sign that lists everybody who's there.
I have the same thing where
Right, so that would be helpful. Yeah, that would be helpful if that was allowed for, in certain spots, so that those businesses can get some recognition.
Well, actually, it never came to pass, but we were gonna have menu cards put at Ridgeland and Industrial Park. But for some, whatever reason, I don't know, it never happened. And that was gonna be that we could remove, whoever moves, put in new ones. It was gonna be like a menu card.
Which is a good idea.
And it was
So-
my idea that never got carried through.
So people who know,
So you know what's back there.
right, and if it changes, you could
Right.
easily
Yeah.
change the sign, so. Is that, did you want to say anything else about?
Oh, I just,
Okay, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Nancy. The one, the two extra things that I saw that you talked about that weren't on these, a sign on the village water tower. You brought that up, so we have a note on that. And places that can use off-site signs. So we have a note on that for follow-up, for additional discussion. Is that right? And then the Dan Monster car's already been brought up, the U-Haul's been brought up already, and off-site signage is brought up already. So
Okay.
I've got that. Did I miss anything with you? Okay, good. Next? Anybody?
Gonna go, Paul? No? I'd like to address another issue, if I may.
Brian, if you'd introduce yourself, I know who you are, but for the record.
Brian Gann, owner of Brian's of Monee. I don't necessarily have an issue with the signage law the way it is. I've had pretty good luck with the different signs, but in the interest of Paul, my neighbor next door, his concerns or his needs for signage are different than mine. I have a chili cook-off, for instance, and I put a sign up for maybe 3 or 4 days prior to the chili cook-off. I also have a reader board on the highway, which I use also. But to bring more people aware, make people more aware of what's going on at Brian's place, I do use signage on a temporary basis. I don't necessarily, I have the Excel Entertainment sign, I also have the lottery sign, but I don't like to put them on my building because I don't want to mess up the decor that I have established, the theme that I have established with regard to my building and property. But it doesn't mean that Lee shouldn't be able to put that sign up if there can be something worked out with regard to signage and an ordinance therefore. I don't know if I can address this issue at this time. I've been in the food and beverage business for 28 years. And at closing time, the person who closes has several tasks that they must do before they can put the alarm on and walk out the door. Now, in the past, we had worked with the liquor commissioner and with the chief of police, and they allowed us a grace period of 15 to 20 minutes to do these particular tasks before they set the bartender leaving the facility sets the alarm. They have to check fryers, make sure that there's no fryers turned on, or grills, or stoves. They have to check the several doors to make sure they're locked. When we had smoking, of course, they had to wait and check and see if there are any butts laying around that might start a fire. Fans have to be turned off, and other necessary things have to be done. Check the bathrooms, make sure that there's no water running in the bathrooms. These things have to be done to secure the building and secure the safety of the person walking out of the building. We have, in the past, worked very well with the chief of police and the previous liquor commissioners on this issue. I don't think it's in the ordinances anywhere where they are supposed to give us a special grace period to get these tasks done, but recently we have been visited at closing time, and the bartender on duty has been asked to leave the premises now because it's closing time. Well, we understand, we give last call 20 to 15 minutes before the hour, and we clear the bar, clear the people out before closing time. That is a must, and that's one rule that is very dear to me, because my bartenders want to get home, and I want them to get home safely, as well as our customers. So they have to leave the bar at the right time. But the person who's closing has got those few extra issues that they have to take care of because they can safely close the building. So I'm asking if there is an ordinance, and I'm sure there is, that we might be allowed either in writing, rather than have a handshake on this thing, but I think maybe we need something because it's very important. Thank you.
Lee, I think, Lee, you mentioned the same issue a few minutes ago too as well. Okay. I don't know, I'll ask the village attorney or Phyllis, do you know if there's an ordinance on this at all?
No,
I don't know if this is a zoning ordinance or possibly a liquor commission ordinance,
I think it belongs in the liquor commission.
which we're not a part of at all.
No.
But we'll investigate that.
It's probably a liquor commissioner issue, but
Yeah.
it's put on record, so, we could at least hear it. And
Yeah.
No, I was led to believe that this organization or this commission here fields everything. That's not true.
No, we're just planning zoning, but because you brought it up, we'll follow up and advise at the next meeting if we're not the right group, what the right group is, fair enough?
Okay, that's fine.
Well, I'll be there next Wednesday's meeting.
Yeah, we'll let you know, it's certainly something we'd like to follow up on, because if you think it's us, then we want to either validate that or say, wait a minute, that's not us, but I don't think that's us, I think that's probably something that's coming from the liquor commission itself and not from the village of Monee. The village of Monee Police Department has to enforce that, but I don't know of anything that I've seen in the zoning, but that's a good one to research, so we'll research that. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, anybody else? Please feel free.
My name is Paul, from the Liquor Depot, 25655 South Corners. Okay, I had a sign outside the building since I got the business last 6 years, and they just told me to knock it down, and which was on a core plastic, and as bolted to the wall, and is a good condition, 6 years. I just had to change the price, that's it. And it's still, if you look at now, it look like a new. And
Can you speak up a little bit, she can't hear
Sure.
you on the mic.
And my business is right on a Cicero, Governors, I mean.
Uh-huh.
And actually, people in a town, they know is a liquor store right here, but mainly is a main traffic road, so I get the more customer from the out of the town, which is a Peatone and Mentino, which is I can tell by the customer, because I live in a town last 12 years, so I know pretty much everybody.
Sure.
And more than 50% revenue I collect from the other town, which is good for the village too.
Mhm.
And now I don't have a sign and I can see effect in my business. And people, customer comes and then say you are open, because there is no sign, I don't have a window, so I can just put the sign in the window. It's a old building. And just, I mean, if it's allowed to put the couple sign, which is good too.
Okay,
That's about it.
all right,
Thanks.
very good. Paul, I'll point out to you at this time, as well as everybody else that's listening, that one of the options you have right now, you don't have to wait for us to have another meeting, is to come and ask for a permit for a temporary permission to put a sign up. And the ladies in the front office can help you with that until this issue is resolved. I don't know the issue specifically, but we'll do our research. But it says very clearly in the statute that you can apply for a temporary permit for signs. And that's what I would encourage you to do. Read what the statute says and try to follow that as close as possible. In the meantime, we're going to continue to do the research on this. I'm one of your customers, I know what you're saying.
Thanks.
But, you know, we'll have to specifically address the issue as best we can and get more definition from people that are involved in that as well.
Yes, I understand.
Thank you for that information, appreciate it. Anybody else? We're not gonna hurry this part, we're gonna take as much time as we need. Come on up, Nancy. You don't have to tell us who you are now, we know.
Okay, I just had one more question. When you want to put in an application for a temporary sign, or let's say you want to put up a sign that doesn't conform, so then you have to do a special use permit. I don't know how much it costs, and I can't find it in here.
I think it's $10.
Oh, for a temporary sign?
I think it's $10, I think I read that.
But if you want a special use, do you have to pay $500 to get a special use permit to put up a
Temporary,
sign?
maybe it's temporary, huh? Ms. Violet?
I know there was a fee.
I think it's $10. I think it's $10. Hold on just a second, let's check that. You may not be getting charged anything, but I believe it says $10.
And that's good. If you're not charged anything, or $10, I think is reasonable. But if you have to get a special use permit, I guess I'd like some justification for a $500 fee for a special use permit.
Well, I'll answer that question first, okay? Previously, a special use permit required the entire zoning commission to be here. All of these people get paid. You have to cover the cost of having that meeting. $500 does not cover the cost, but it covers a portion of the cost. So I'm sure the reason that was done was because when you have a special use meeting, you're asking 7 people to come,
Oh,
plus
it's
the
a
village attorney.
separate meeting
Pardon me?
from,
It's a separate meeting, that's
okay,
correct. And it's a special meeting usually.
okay.
This meeting tonight is not being held for special use, this meeting's being held because we want to go and review this to try to help as a public service to our community. We've been asked by the village board to do that. So, that's the reason by the special use. Now, I'm not suggesting if Paul, for example, needs something, he should come get a special use permit. I'm saying he might want to ask for temporary.
So special use permits can't be dealt with in the regular meetings?
Absolutely can, but we don't normally have meetings. We don't normally have zoning committee meetings except for special use. In the past 2 years that I've been on this board, the only time we had a meeting was for special use.
I see, gotcha.
And this is the exception, and we're trying to make this more of a habit because we'd like to review and update all the codes. And this is the first one we start on because we know it's an issue to people like you and myself too, by the way.
That's
So,
expensive, yeah.
Yeah, we'd like to review that, we'd like to be able to make changes where it's appropriate within the signage
Thank
code,
you.
as well as the other code.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Nancy. Uh-oh, I'm
All right.
trouble now.
Mark Foster, 5640 West Laurel Lane. And I got here a little late, so I don't know if I missed something, excuse me, but, you know, everybody here seems to be just responding that they're just trying to make a living, which is very true of all of us. But I'd like to reiterate what Nancy said, in that if the village, this village in particular, is going to compete with its residents as far as the off-site advertising is concerned, that seems to be inherently wrong. So I guess that's what I want to say.
I don't disagree with that at all. I'll say that publicly. I
Okay.
certainly don't see why the village would do something that citizens of the village couldn't do as well.
David, if I may. I'm sitting here, and I did go through some of these ordinances before coming to this meeting, and, you know, a lot of these were done in the late 90s. And therefore, it is definitely time for us to reevaluate and decide, bring them up to date. You know, this, to me, is Stone Age. Because a lot of this stuff that I'm looking at doesn't necessarily apply today the way it did back in '97. And, you know, we're trying to get together to update it, just like all the national codes are updated every 3 years. Codes like this should also be updated every 3 years. And that's what we're in the process of doing.
Yeah, you know, what you say is very true, and signage and advertising is very economically sensitive. It changes a lot. So if you have a code that is A or B, and the economy goes into M and Q and Z, then it just doesn't jive with the economy. Things change.
Now,
It needs to
I
be
may
flexible.
say that what you have to keep in mind is this is not a code. These are ordinances. There's the difference between an ordinance, a village ordinance, and a village code. Villages tend to have amendments to codes, but they have the right and the ability to make ordinances,
Sure.
which basically are law. Just
So,
like a code is, but they're,
so I guess the point is to be flexible with different types of businesses and different types of industry. It's different for different
Sure.
economies and different businesses.
Okay, look, I want to thank you, Mark, I appreciate that. And we're going to come back to our own discussion here in just a second to the commission. Again, we wanted to make sure tonight we had plenty of time for public comments. Any other public comments on the signs, and then we're going to go to the next subject first that's on the agenda as well. Okay, thank you very much. I hope you notice a difference. Again, one of the reasons we're having this meeting is not to change anything, but to ask for input so that we can go back and work among ourselves and come back at a public meeting next month and talk about changes we think we might be able to have. So thank you. Please stay. Please listen to our conversation as well. The next subject that we want to open up and talk about is these tree ordinances that have to do with streets, sidewalks, and public ways. Heidi Gonzalez, our trustee, newly elected trustee, is here tonight. That's, I know, one of her passions. Heidi, I'll let you come up if you want to and let us know, because I know you're very involved with this, with the council, and let us know what we're looking for here.
Okay, and thank you. I decided I wanted to come tonight too to try to, since I knew this discussion was happening anyway. Heidi Gonzalez, 25634 South Daffodil Lane. And yes, this has been one of my passions since starting this. Just to let you know too, and because I was on P&Z for almost 6 years too and have the ordinances, what I first noticed was that the P&Z book that we have of what is allowable and not allowable for trees and parkways is not the same as what the village ordinance says as allowable trees and not allowed. So in talking with Dave Wallace, Public Works, and then I've located a certified arborist who is going to volunteer his time for the village. First of all, in redoing the village ordinance on trees, in getting an appropriate list together, what's allowed and not allowed for the parkways. that meets all of the codes and, you know, whatnot, and especially to make sure that the root systems, and they don't grow too tall if there's power lines and everything, so he's going to do that for us. And as I said at last week's meeting, I was gonna try to redo that and kind of look at best practices of villages and cities who are truly doing a fabulous job and being able to get that done, and have the ordinance kind of in a draft form for Attorney Grashewski, and then by next month's meeting, hopefully get that ordinance done, and then work on a tree replacement program for the village as well, which there is none. And zero. And what I did notice, going back to the planning and zoning book, it seemed that that book was just for new developers in town, and that list for small trees and cheap trees of what they were allowed to plant or not allowed to plant. But it didn't take into account what was already here in the village. And some of our subdivisions, and the one which several of us live in, 400 trees were planted, 60% of one kind was planted, which is wrong in every sense of the word because they were cheap to plant in Illinois. So we as a village too are taking it in very strong stance and wanting to do what's right, and actually maybe someday becoming a tree city, and that as well. So, and I do, and since I come from the world of advertising too, I love this sign ordinance thing, and I understand what everybody is saying loud and clear. And since coming from the world of advertising, why we can't advertise our own residents and things to promote our own village, for goodness sake, I understand loud and clear. And I think that's what the village board is trying to do, in that sense of the word too, that apples to apples. If we want something for the whole village, everybody has the right to do the same.
Thank you. Couldn't have said any better. Thank you very much. Any other comments on trees, on the tree ordinance? So the gist of what I heard there is not that the ordinances themselves have anything wrong with the words, but the allowable trees and the way they're utilized in different neighborhoods is really the issue that's being addressed.
Because our village too has never done an inventory of trees.
Right.
And, you know, so even though we have access to the geographical data, it had never been done. So that's, you know, our fault, and that's
Okay.
our fault. So that's what needs to be done first.
And if you would come back to the mic, please, so we can, in case somebody else has a question. If I understand you correctly, between now and next month, your arborist is going to be coming and spending some time and will make recommendations. Is he going to be making the recommendations to this group first, or will he be making directly to the zoning committee?
He will make it, he himself is going to make it directly to Public Works, to Dave Grisell, who is going to update that list, so that list can look exactly the same on the village ordinance, and then we will suggest it back to you as that you adopt the same ordinance for planting of trees. And right now, what I think the arborist is working on is looking at the inventory of the trees that still need to come down, and making sure that those have been identified and whether they're worth saving or if they need to come down because they're harmful to public property and human life.
Okay. Do any of you have any questions for Trustee Gonzalez?
Just clarification, the arborist is also going to try to put some verbiage out there to avoid monotony of design of the trees too.
And yeah, and that's where I was talking about best practices too, and that's what he said too, that you can use like other species that aren't native to Illinois and they can be very successful, but the goal is not to have more than 10% of any one tree in any subdivision. So the exact same thing, like we had the Dutch elm disease and now, you know, the Japanese beetle. So just in case, and it was a great analogy, he talked about a forest fire, that now it's working its way through and it's killing off everything and there's no room for new growth. But we have to start from ground zero now.
Okay, and you also said something about possibly replacing the trees in our parkways in our subdivision?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it was suggested too that, you know, because first we have to do the ordinance and get their acceptable trees. And he suggested now, because it's too late in the planting season, we don't want to put any new trees in the summer. We want to give them the best success and trying to then the first planting, the first wave of planting as the budget allows will be in the fall planting season.
Sounds real exciting, thanks.
And just to add on that, in conversations that I've had with the village administration, they're in the process of writing some grants that they hope will allow for financial aid And they're hopeful that one of the things we might be able to do in doing this is to allow the residents to have a little bit of freedom within their house area that they live to determine what they would plant. Now, whether we can do that with code, I don't know.
And that being said, and implying with those grants, though, applying for those grants, it would be key, but you have to first have a plan, because you
Right.
have to justify a grant. You can't just write a grant without having a plan in place.
Correct. And that's the importance of us reviewing this, is we'd like to help work with the village board again to, as quickly as possible, put a plan together so that they then can begin applying for grants that will help us financially to be able to do this. So we're trying to be good stewards, as well as make sure we do it well in writing and documents so that we don't have a reoccurrence where 100% of one tree because of price alone is planted in the area as the economy begins to come back and builders come back. So well stated. Any other questions for?
What towns were you referring to?
The ones that I found that, might not be perfect in our little neck of the woods, Roselle had a plan for that I call it EAB now, the Emerald Ash Borer, since 2008. They're in the process of working with 28,000 trees, and they're successfully treating them. Naperville, Munster, Richton Park, all have very good plans. Richton Park, and it's on their website. It's an astounding, their Public Works Department has inventoried every tree, how much it costs for each tree for the village to replace it. If the residents want to become part of a 50-50 plan, they can plant their own tree or plant a tree in someone's honor in that village too. So just to make it more green, if they have somebody that they'd like to honor in a park or something, and that's part of their tree replacement program as well.
Years ago, Commonwealth Edison.
Exactly, and I just.
Yeah, they gave trees to people. And I personally got 2 of them, and they're just beautiful trees.
And that's something, as I found out too, actually and Homewood was the other one too, ComEd as well as the Arbor Day Foundation. But because ComEd maintains, and has to cut, a lot of the trees along the parkways with the power lines, they suggest trees that don't grow that tall, and we'll give them to villages who have a plan.
Well, that'd be,
So there's some unsightly ones down Will Center Road that really need to come down, and perhaps ComEd could be good stewards and, replace those as well.
So we're back to-
Road?
On Will Center, yeah.
Which end?
On the
or
north end by the
south?
church, there's some pretty dead trees that could become liabilities very quickly if they don't come down.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Heidi.
Yep.
Trustee Gonzalez, excuse me.
It's okay.
Okay, any other open comments from the public? It is great when we get, oh, come on, Nancy.
I'm sorry, Mark had to leave, but it reminds me, he was at the meeting last week and he heard about the desire to get more trees, and he has a very interesting connection to be able to get a lot of trees at a very, 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 very good price. So I don't know the contact, but we'll contact you. Give you, right, so I'm just telling you that we need to get.
I'm sure that'll be by public bid when the time comes. Any other public comments? We need a motion to close the public comment?
No, no surprise.
Close. Very good, thank you. Old business, I know no old business. We can pass that. New business, actually, 2 items to discuss. The first, and we need to have a motion to open up new business.
I'll make that motion.
No? Perfect. It's on the agenda, we're good. So, now this is the part for the public. This is the part where we talk and you don't get to talk. I apologize, but but you can listen. And please stay around and give us your comments afterwards if you like. But just to carry this along the right way, and so the next meeting you'll know how this works as well. We'll try to follow that process as close as we can. So for the board members, there's 2 things we've talked about tonight. One is the sign ordinance. Again, didn't expect you to go through and read all the sign ordinance before we come tonight, but we did have a lot of good conversations. I think we have a pretty good feel of the issues that are the public that are here tonight have expressed. Particularly note that a lot of this is businesses, of course. which you would expect. And these are some issues that we can do some research between now and the next time. Now, I didn't hear anybody say about communities that might have best practices for sign ordinances. Any of you have any thoughts or suggestions on that?
This is where a lot of this came from,
Right,
other villages.
yeah, back in the 90s, a lot of it, right? But in 2013, do we know of any communities that anybody want to suggest?
Yes, I can, I've got a couple of municipalities that have very good, in my opinion, sign ordinances. One of them being North Riverside, and I can get copies of theirs. And another one is the Village of Westmont. They also have a very good ordinance.
I'm thinking Frankfurt might have a good one.
Okay.
I'll get theirs.
Thank you.
Yeah, with as much business as they have there, you would think.
Okay. You're both talking about getting a hard copy paper, I assume?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna just, for the record, I'm gonna look on their webpages as well, see if there's anything on there, because I hate to burn trees,
Oh, I'll try to get an electronic copy.
you know, if we can.
Yeah.
Do we, I think, Phyllis, do you have email? You have email, don't you?
Have what?
Email?
No.
Okay. So we want to be very careful because of the Open Meetings Act and everything, if we're passing information back and forth. Your recommendation, sir, on the best way to handle that?
What I would just get copies and put in the boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other village you might want to look at, it's local, and probably one of the tougher villages around, and they do outstanding business, is Roland Park. You go down LaGrange Road, 159, they're very stringent, yet they bring a lot of businesses. I see where the businesses are coming about their concerns. That is a very smooth operation. You go down LaGrange Road, 159th, 143rd, their ordinances are spot on. And I think some of them are pretty close to what you have here, but in your Roland Park.
Okay. All right, so we have North Riverside, Village of Westmont, Frankfurt, Orland Park, anything else? Anybody? If you,
I think this is a good project to do.
sure.
We really need it.
So I'd ask you if you are able to locate those, Ed and Mike, and please get them and make a copy and get them to Michelle so that we can make copies and put them in everybody's box.
Yeah.
Sheila Bartlett is not here tonight, and that's all. We don't have any other new members at this point. So we're working with the administration to determine other members of the board. We still have 2 more members to put on. But the group, we have to work on this. And again, it would be our intent at the next meeting not to pass anything unless something just jumps out at us, but to study it at the next meeting. We'll solicit public comments, so the public that's here has heard the communities we're going to be looking at. If somebody has another recommendation, please contact the village office or relay email, and we'll try to put that in there as well. Any other comments on the sign ordinances?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The one in here that I have a big concern about is the vehicle signs, what I commonly call the rolling signs, which is what one of the gentlemen was talking about, or the lady with
The State Farm sign?
State Farm sign.
Yeah. Where's that at? What section?
Under location, and it's J
Got it.
for Johnson.
Yep, I got it right here. 1112-6 location, for those of you that have it. No vehicle trailer which has attached thereto or located thereon any sign or advertising shall be parked so as to be visible from a public right-of-way for the purpose of providing advertisement of products or directing people to a business or activity. That's the one.
Correct. Now, you know, I was in business for 13 years, and my trucks had my company name on them. My office was my house. So they sat outside. Now, you know, admittedly, at that point, nobody gave me a lot of hassle, but eventually I did have to get a special use permit. I could have put a big sign out in front of my house that said KVA Electric. But I couldn't have those trucks parked in my driveway. Now, you know, the biggest complaint that I've heard over the years about this is, okay, you allow a guy to bring his car, his State Farm car home, or have it parked out in front of his business, you know, the Sears repairman gets to take his truck home because he's got early calls, and it sits in a driveway. And this is not legal, and according to this, it's not legal. But, you know, and I'm totally opposed to this, but where do you draw the line? Now, you know, next thing you know, you've got guys with semi-trailers parking them in their driveway. So, you know, I'm recommending that we look into eliminating this part of the ordinance and instead insert something where we put a weight limit on a mobile sign.
A vehicular sign.
Right.
Sounds like a good idea. They put limits on it.
I mean, we've got a guy over here who works for the state of Illinois. He's got his IDOT truck, pickup truck. You know, technically, he should be ticketed just like the State Farm guy.
Yep. Okay. I do want to point out that it says shall be parked so as to be visible from the public right of way for the purpose of providing advertisement.
Right.
Somebody bringing their car home to park at night is not for the purpose. Probably it's not interpreted that way.
In your mind or mine?
Well, I'm thinking more the purpose of a code enforcement. I want to give our code enforcement people a little bit of help here because it's a tough job. And specifically, this is the code, so the person who wrote the tickets is doing their job.
Correct.
It's going to be up to us to address it. But until it's addressed, you're right, they're going against the code. It's very obvious somebody parked out in front diagonally, because I've seen that State Farm car parked out there, is doing it for the purpose of advertising.
Right.
If I park my vehicle in my driveway, I gotta stay in my driveway, it's my driveway. Now, I'm home for the night, there's a little bit of a difference there. Now, either one, I think, I like the idea of putting a weight limit on it, but again, I think we need to see some best practice from some other villages and see if we can find something that we can use.
I would agree to the point that if we're talking about a residential section, but certainly not in a commercial section, I would not agree to that. Look at the problem that they have with the U-Hauls right now. The weight limit would make them have to continue to park in the back.
Good point.
Not advertising, they have a.
Well, commercial, yeah, I agree with you. Commercial areas would have to be, as far as I'm concerned, a different ordinance altogether.
Yep.
We would have to have one for residential, so that when, if people did take their vehicles home with the names on them, and then a separate one for the commercial where, you know, somebody would take and have their vehicle parked.
And U-Haul's probably a good example, because I personally, if I'm looking for a U-Haul, the best way to look for one is go find one. You gotta
Yes.
drive down the road, the first time you see a U-Haul truck, oh, there's a place.
Yes.
And so I absolutely understand what he's saying on that. I think makes sense, but we need to find a way to do that within code.
Right.
So that'll be the challenge. Good discussion. Anything else on signs? Again, please read through this between now and next month. Make notes. Feel free to do your own research. We're not intending to come back next month and do anything other than continue this conversation unless there's a specific thing that you see that we can talk about, you know, something like this maybe. And all we can do is make recommendation to the village board at this point. But that's a great discussion, and a great segue into the next issue, which is the trees. My sense on the trees is they want to move a little faster on some of this in order to be able to get grants. We have an arborist with a study next month, but we have less to do. really more of what we're going to do there is probably, again, based upon best practices from some of the other villages. Somebody's going to be giving us a list, and based upon that list, unless one of us is an arborist and wants to spend a lot of time on that, we're probably going to pass that through the village fairly quick, I would suspect. But again, I'd solicit any comments you have on that. And if you've seen my yard, you know I'm interested in this subject. Because I have a lot of trees, I have a lot of flowers, I mean, I'm very interested in making sure we do the right thing here.
Got a good vegetable garden too.
And I'm a strawberries.
Really,
Anything else on this?
That's nice.
Okay.
Let's go home and
I
watch the
still think we
Hawks.
need, pardon?
Let's go home and watch the
I don't think we
Hawks.
need to have a motion to close this either, do we?
No.
Okay. So if I have a move, anybody want to move for adjournment?
I move that.
Second.
Under discussion, thank you very much for your good conversation tonight, both to the public and to the board. And call roll call, please.
Gross.
Yes.
Nealon.
Yes.
Alston.
Yes.
Johnson.
yes.
Thank you all for coming tonight.